This is the Sport Fishing Championship.
Welcome to our morning show on the Sport Fishing Championship on sportfishingchampionship.com. The Texas International Fishing Tournament, our penultimate round to crown our $1 million champion in a couple of weeks at San Juan, Puerto Rico. Stop number 9 of 10, the 82nd event of the Texas International Fishing Tournament, TIFT as they call it. I'm Robbie Floyd with Peter Miller. We'll be joined by Ronnie Moore here in just a moment. We're in the southern tip of Texas, the Lone Star State. You saw all the canyons, all the drop-offs, not very far off of shore, only about 40 to 60 miles these guys can run and catch some of these mighty billfish. Welcome everybody inside our SFC studios. I'm Robbie Floyd. That's the man. You're three-time, three-time?
That's right, Robbie. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, in case anyone forgot it. I appreciate you. It's kind of like my mom when she brings me out to a family gathering. She says, you know, he is a three-time, World Silver champ. It's kind of a big deal.
Kind of big deal, the family reunions. But
listen,
he's not
these guys are catching a ton of fish, and that's really what's happening. That's the most important part of this thing, but I appreciate the title and recognizing me on that. But these guys are catching over 100 billfish as far as we know. We are following up with the teams as we speak, with the tournament directors, finding out exactly how many fish were caught. There were blues, there were whites, there were sails, and then they have another side which is completely inshore, catching fluke, flounder, snook, speckled trout, you name it. They caught them all. Family, kids, hardcore anglers, you name it. And this is an event that you will not want to miss for next year. If you missed it this year, you got to be there next year. TIFT is the place to be. That would be the 83rd edition. I mentioned your three-time World Sailfish Championships because between Ronnie Moore, who's on site with Site One, and myself and you, we all have 3 World Sailfish Championships, Ronnie. I mean, we've been doing our part, he's been doing our part, and what an event it was at the TIFT.
Well, I mean, I can't brag about championships that I have from, the sailfish events that Peter's won, but I can say I've seen more sailfish than him this week. I can at least brag on that. Being on site, it's not too shabby here in South Padre. Obviously, we've talked about it. It's a great place to be tourism-wise. Certain times of the year, it's definitely crowded, but this is a poppin' area. Port Isabel, South Padre, this whole community, multiple towns kind of get together to make this whole event possible. So it's great to be here in South Padre.
Absolutely. Get on a plane, hop down Rio Grande Valley, Harlingen, Brownsville, down there. A lot of things to do, maybe hop across the border. But we're talking about fishing this week. And we knew coming into this event that we'd see a variety of fish. Now, we probably weren't going to see the swords. It wasn't a nighttime event. Spearfish, very seldom. We only saw those at Martha's Vineyard. But when you talk about those sails, whites and blues, we definitely saw that this week.
We did, Robbie. This was one of the most fish-catching events that we've had all season long. I think we've had multiple events this year, maybe 2 of them where the winner had more than 10 billfish to their count for the tournament, and we saw that happen this week. We saw a good mixture of blues, whites, and sails. Whatever strategy you wanted to chip in with, maybe you kept all options available. We saw a lot of recipes for success from our teams this week, and I think it made the 82nd TIFT one of the best, at least in recent memory. But if we went all the way back 82 years, it's got to be a top 5, top 6 event all time when you compare the Bay Division and the offshore portion of it, everything in conjunction to each other. What a great atmosphere here. I mean, you guys should have been here and saw how packed it was. Not only when the offshore weigh-in started and when boats were trickling in at the end of yesterday, but the entire time from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m., it was packed here at South Point Marina.
Ronnie, I think the scene was like punch for punch, which was like fish for fish, because that top of that leaderboard was super heated, and they were really going. They were like dinging the rounds, and the fish were coming in. Was it like palpable? Was it like at the marina? Were people watching the scoreboards? Were they talking about like, wow, these guys are neck and neck. They're going punch for punch. What was that scene like? Were they watching?
Yeah, we actually had a big jumbotron here right behind where our camera's stationed, and it had multiple speakers. I mean, everyone here at the marina was able to watch our actual SFC shows, so they could see the Bay Division weighing in their different catches, like you were saying, redfish, flounder, snook, trout, all of those different things. They could watch that go down and watch our previous shows, and they knew 3 or 4 teams were just 1 fish away from taking the 82nd annual TIFT event, at least on the SFC point side of the things. You thought it was close on the SFC point side of this tournament, but man, the TIFT point structure, it's vastly different than ours, and it was even closer at the top there. So not disappointing at all when you look at the top 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 teams, whatever it may be. Most, if not all of them, are local Texas teams. So you knew family, friends, everyone in the community were showing up not only on Saturday, but Friday as well.
Thanks, Ronnie. Deep in the heart of Texas down there on site with Site 1. We'll see you, remind everybody at the top of the hour on CBS Sports Network. Again, it was a great event. It's part of our Sport Fishing Championship series. But we have a series inside the series. We've got the Gulf Division champion to be crowned today. Quantified's on top of the standings as it is coming into this event. Moncherie, Southern Charm, Rising Suns in this event, as well as Rebecca back down there in 8th. It's Quantified's Gulf to lose, isn't it? And lose that $100,000 because that's what's on the line, literally.
That's right, and they really held tight. They held strong, caught a lot of fish, so, you know, they deserve to be at the very top. I don't know where they exactly wound up, but they deserve everything they're going to get.
Garmin Team Spotter puts them out there on that drop-off. Let's take a look back at day number 1 for Team Quantified. Again, you can watch on CBS Sports Network at the top of the hour and see how everything plays out. But these are some of the catches early on, and we saw 3 different varieties of fish being caught. White marlin, blue marlin, as well as the sail.
That's right, all under the billfish umbrella with the pointy noses. I always explain that to everybody. They're like, what's the difference? Well, one has a sail, one has a rounded type dorsal that goes straight down, and one has a pointed tip on the dorsal that runs low down the back, and that's really the one you want, which is the blue marlin, which is 350 points. Backing down in that calm water. Every time I see Quantified, somehow they find that calm water, and they find that big, vast, giant space of fish, and they're catching them every single time I see them. There's another fish right there.
Let him go, let him go.
Leader. They hand touch the leader there. You see video recording of that. Every one of these teams has to have stay in constant contact with their fish on that video recording, because, you know, some people say, well, they could, you know, just say, oh, I got it, I made this leader, let the fish get there, I caught it again. No, that's not that easy. You see the actual release of the fish. Here's another one they had on. You talked about the water that we're seeing. It does look very calm. We saw pictures from that first day that didn't look near this calm for some of our other teams.
That's right, and you know, it's very important that they, you know, shoot their fish with a camera, not a gun. Shoot their fish with a camera, get those timestamps, because if you think about, you know, hundreds of fish being caught by 100 or 200 boats, you've got to have some way of monitoring who's caught what and when they caught it, because it is a big deal, and it comes down 2 seconds.
Absolutely, and locally now, we actually do have ties in the Sport Fishing Championship. Locally, they generally break those times by who caught that fish first, right?
Correct. So if you have 2 fish and one guy caught a marlin, one guy caught a marlin, if you caught yours at 8:54 and he caught his at 8:55, you win the tournament at 8:54. So that's typically the way it is. But this right here looks like a nice size, fun size blue marlin. It looks to be foul hook, but that's okay. Doesn't need to be in their mouth. Sometimes that happens. They go wild after those baits, and sometimes they get lassoed, and that's Texas. You know, they're doing the rodeos. They're doing all sorts of things like that. It's pretty funny that they actually lassoed a blue marlin.
And with the blue marlin, you don't necessarily need a big blue marlin. Now, the local side of things, there's possibilities a certain length they could bring those fish in, but these are catch and release fish. It's much easier to catch a small blue, get those 350 points, let them go, and try and catch another one.
Listen, when we fished some tournaments, one day we came upon some striped marlin, and they were 40-pounders, and we caught a ton of them. And that's really what you want, because they count just as much as the 400, 500-pound fish.
Let's go to the Garmin Team Spotter. Move on to SIGSBEE Deep. It's the first time we've seen this team. We've heard about them before in the state of Texas. As Ronnie had mentioned, several Texas teams. They would prove themselves really quick. I think our first catch of the weekend, this 2-day tournament, and they caught them throughout. And this was the head-to-head matchup we were talking about, Quantified and SIGSBEE Deep.
That's right. That's a nice fish right there. They already have the tag in them. They're getting ready to cut the leader off, and the fish are just going to swim away. We caught another day, and there's another nice fish. And you can tell that's no joke. That's not a sailfish. That is the real deal. Those are some powerful jumps. And they have that tackle matched. Oof. That was some nice footage.
One thing you mentioned, tagging. People here, tag and release, catch and release. They're not obligated to tag, but it's kind of a cool deal, right? I mean, it's a little RFID chip that travels with that fish. You see where it is throughout the year.
They call this particular style is called a spaghetti tag, and they pop it in the back. So if someone were to catch it, 2 years from now, these guys will have sent their paperwork in to the Billfish Foundation and said, hey, this fish was 65 pounds. We caught him in this we caught him on these coordinates. It was about, this area, and 2 years later, it's caught maybe 1,000 miles away, or maybe it's in that same area feeding. You never know. But I've gotten reports back when I've caught a fish, and they said, Peter, this was caught 2 years ago in Puerto Rico, and I was in the DR, and this fish had gained about 50 pounds.
Ooh, that's a big gain. That sounds like me after that weight program I was on last year. Rebecca, the Garmin team spotter, puts them farther on the outside, maybe a little bit more north. Again, a vast expanse of the Gulf of Mexico. This is one of our teams in our top 10 in the Gulf Division. I think they sit 8th coming into this round. They were trying to move up as far as they can because we still have to crown that $1 million champion, that $1 million first ever sport fishing champion in San Juan, Puerto Rico in about 3 weeks' time. And
they definitely had a no surrender attitude. They just kept going and cranking. I think they caught about 11 fish as far as I can see, and they just kept going for it. They're working their way up that leaderboard and just grinding away. But when it's all said and done, there's only going to be one boat that's going to win that $1 million, the one that has won the entire program, and that's really the one you want to be. But they're, obviously getting after it with 11 fish, so we'll see where they wind up.
Yeah, their two best finishes are pretty solid, 7th and an 8th, but they have a 0. That's one you don't even want to think about, and a 17th. So they're really trying to get rid of that 17th as far as the event points. We pay event points all the way down from 1st to 20th place. First gives you 3,500, 20th place gives you 200. You need to stay away from that 500-point 17th place that they caught way back when.
That's right, and you got to really forget about those numbers for a minute, and you got to work on trying to get those blue marlin. You got to stay, alert. You got to be on your toes. When that blue marlin comes into the spread, it's like a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and he's chasing that teaser. You want to get that bait presented to him perfectly right there, and if he's not quite eating it, you want to sip it back. You just want to drip it back into their mouth with a slight little thumb release and let it get in there, and once they get it and they go, you're on. Circle hook in the corner of the mouth, and it's go time, and that is going to be a 350-point release, catapulting them to the next level because those fish are point precious.
Now, the green squid was very prevalent when we were in Martha's Vineyard, right?
And Jersey, yeah. That's
Jersey.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that on the back of their boat as well.
Well, listen, you got to keep changing. You got to see what works. You'll have a teaser on one side of the boat that's green, one that's pink, and you'll find, the guy on the left, he's catching fish after fish after fish, and finally you're like, hey, can we maybe switch to a green one on my side as well? And maybe switch his to a pink, and maybe we'll see what happens. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, they're on the green one again. So they say fish are colorblind, they can't really tell what's going on, but somehow they key in on a color. Somehow they can figure out on this grayscale what's happening.
And it looked like it might have possibly been a blue, but I think it was one of their 6 white marlin that they caught. They caught almost as many sailfish as well.
That's right.
For Rebecca. Garmin Team Spotter moving around. Again, these are generalizations, not exact locations of these teams. Team Double E looks like they're a little more inside before that drop-off. Now, some of these guys like to be up there on the flats. It depends on the currents and the water temperatures and the confluences of some of these things. And we're seeing the sea look a little bit different as well in this area.
Yeah, there's a little swell there, but it's calm. You can see the winds laid down. And, if you don't see whitecaps, it's going to be 12 knots or 11 knots and under. So that shows you that it's pretty calm out there. It's a nice, platform to be fishing on, and you're not getting banged around. You can see them backing around. You can see their bubble trail behind. They backed around. They're spinning around. They're trying to get this white marlin. They caught 3 sails and a white, as far as I can see on the scoreboard, and they did a great job. They were working their way, just like everybody else was.
Kevin Scott's been putting people on fish for many years around these neck of the woods. Colby Scott, Bob House, Kyle Beach, all on board of Double E. Again, this was yesterday, day number 2 with those catches. You see all the stirred up water going forwards and back. And again, it's expediency. You want to get these fish caught, released, leave lines out there at times and try and, you know, maybe double up. We heard doubles and even triples on this tournament.
Always, Robbie. When you have a fish on, you don't immediately bring in your stuff. You see how he's sitting there with his finger holding that. That's through the rigger, or it's waiting for another bite because someone's fighting one on the other side. But then it comes to a point where you back down on this fish and you have to bring him in. Once you start backing, you either go to the bow and troll backwards, or you have to reel it in. Otherwise, you're going to run it over, get it caught in the prop. So this fish right here, you know, as far as I can see, looks like a little white marlin, and they're on again. I love those rod holders next to the in the transom right there. A lot of people don't do that. You know, they say, oh, preserve the teak transom. You know, it doesn't look great when you have rod holders. I'm like, guys, this is what we do. I want 100 rod holders on my boat, as many as I can fit without sinking the boat. Swiss cheese it out.
Absolutely. Double A catching more sailfish than anything. The sailfish worth 75. They were looking for blues in that 350-point total, but more sails this time.
Before I fall in the water, grab me tight, and I've got my ready? Pop them up.
All right. Well, you can see, Robbie, how they're popping that hook out. They come out pretty easy sometimes. Sometimes you pop them out, but those hooks will rust out.
And they were measuring for length again on the local side of things. They can have certain bring-in fish as far as these marlin, or a variety of species. Our side on the SFC is catch and release, but for the local event, that could be worth some money. If
so they were measuring that fish, and based on the measurements that everybody knows, if it hits a certain mark, they can bring that fish in, and they can be guaranteed that it's going to be close to, you know, possibly winning. Those with the White Marlin Open guys are, you know, hanging fish there a lot, and you know, that's exactly what they were trying to do, but they figured it was a little too small, and they let it go, and that's catch and release.
Team Rising Suns, our Garmin team spotter, put them a little bit deeper or towards the center of the Gulf of Mexico. That 58-foot Viking from Orange Beach, Alabama, making that run. They had a rough run of it as well, coming from Orange Beach down to Texas. The weather didn't play in their favor early on this week.
Right, but looks like someone's in the chair, and that's a good sign. Using his shoulder to support that big reel, that big outfit, that bent butt system meant for that fighting chair.
We know who that is. That's Jacelyn Berthelot. She's done it a time or 2 or 10 on the Sport Fishing Championship.
That's right. Last time we saw her, she said, give me a second. I just need 1 second to get back in action. Oof, that's a nice fish right there.
Oh, that's a beast. That's a big.
That is a big one.
You got to throw the extra.
You're all right.
When I say it's a big, it's a standalone. You don't even need to say 1 or 2. That's just a big. And now look how far. It was closer just a minute ago. That's a toad.
That is a thick, thick girl right there. Most likely a female blue marlin. The females get to be larger than the males. The males typically tap out at about 450, 500, and you get those females that'll, you know, get up there to
1,000, 1,300.
Yeah, they'll get way up there.
I think a near world record was caught off the African coast a couple of weeks ago. Again, blue marlin move all around the world. I mean, this fish could end up in Africa in a half a year from now, or there's Pacific marlin as well. But I mean, these guys really, they travel a lot.
Yeah, you'll find some jumbos in Hawaii. You know, they'll catch those granders. They call them 1,000-pound plus, which is very rare. But that is a big fish right there.
My goodness, look at the size of that thing. And a young lady, a small young lady as well, getting this big fish. That's what it's all about. That is a special moment for this team.
Good job, guys.
It was a pretty hard fight. He took a lot of line at the beginning, and I had a really hard time getting it back. But eventually, I powered through and got him up to the boat. He's a few inches short, but we like to watch him swim off. So it was a good thing to watch, good thing to experience. I'm hoping that we get 2 or 3 more out here soon.
So you can tell with the celebratory little pop-offs, you can tell that fish they had a snooter on him, they measured him, and he was probably 450, close to 500 pounds, but not quite exactly what they wanted.
We've seen the fish dance. Now we're seeing the little fish pop there. 10 a.m., the top of the hour. We're going to be live on CBS Sports Network. You'll see all the catches that you've seen from this little morning show on sportfishingchampionship.com, and you'll also see much more, and we will crown a champion, not only for the event, but the Gulf Division. Stick with us, top of the hour on CBS Sports Network.